Good afternoon. Would you like to try a free sample of our double fudge brownie?
Oh, sure. That's very good. I'll just take one more, just to be sure. Yep, still very good.
Some things never change, like never being able to take just one free sample. And Geico saving folks lots of money on their car insurance.
Is that macadamia nut I taste? Let me take one more.
Sir,
Yeah, I thought so.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
A big hello to all our listeners. And we're back with our first off-season episode of the Inside Line F1 podcast. And Kunal, we have some really exciting news to share with our listeners, don't we?
Yes, and some really interesting statistics.
So I'm going to start. Guys, we've crossed 150,000 listens this season.
Wow. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you so much for your support and listens.
Thank you so much, guys. And you know what? We've been featured every week on our partner website. So we've had motorsport.com, Sport360, Scroll, NDTV, talking about F1, First Post, Motor Octane, and Sportskeeda.
Yes, we've got fantastic partners in Audio Boom and even iTunes for that matter. And, they've given a brilliant push to our listens this season. We've got some fantastic feedback on the quality of our content. And, of course, some suggestions too. And also in our first for 2016, and, it's never too late. I know the year's ending anytime. We have got Nico Hulkenberg on this week's episode of the Inside Line Formula One podcast. And guess what? That's not enough. We actually also have Sergio Perez coming up next week. So remember to subscribe to us. Like I said, we are on iTunes and we are on Audio Boom. So you can pretty much subscribe to us on any device that you've got.
Kunal, it's just interesting that when one Nico is hogging all the headlines, we have the other Nico Hulkenberg on our podcast. And in fact, our regular listeners will remember that Nico Hulkenberg is actually the third driver on our podcast. So the first one was, of course, Nico Rosberg. And then we flew down to meet David Coulthard during the Red Bull Racing run. And now, we've got Nico Hulkenberg.
But before we get to Nico Hulkenberg's bites, and trust me, they are extremely fun and interesting, here's a quick wrap-up of what to expect in this week's episode. So the off-season chatter has been about who is going to be replacing Nico Rosberg at Mercedes in 2017. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to be Fernando Alonso.
Wow, I think I heard a million hearts just break. Crash!
We also talk about Max Verstappen, of course, and the number of overtaking moves he has had this season. And some nonsensical data that Pirelli has given about how 2016 has had more overtakings every season since 1983. Stay tuned.
Kunal, I'm going to start talking about the Mercedes ad for a replacement driver for Nico Rosberg. Their humor was just hilarious. I mean, full marks to them for pulling it off and with such a punch of humor. I think we, as proponents of humor in Formula One, we really should be proud of them.
We've said this before and we say it again. Mercedes is out to make the most of this positive PR about Rosberg leaving and finding a replacement. So in this ad that we are talking about, and I'm sure every single listener of ours has seen the ad in some form or the other, Mercedes listed steering, braking and acceleration as the key skills for their driver and not overtaking. I think this is just the state of Formula One at the moment. And probably if you are in a Mercedes too, you barely need to overtake off late, so not too far away.
I'm surprised they didn't put getting off to a decent start on that list of requirements then looking at last season.
But it's not a surprise at all that fans want Fernando Alonso in the car. What's even more a surprise in this is Flavio Briatore has said no, that Fernando Alonso will see his contract with McLaren out till the end. And Honestly, the one person who I'd expect to say that, hey, I will get Alonso in the Mercedes is Flavio Briatore. So thank you for disappointing us, Flavio.
It's also really funny. Mercedes released that ad only in, certain markets. So I'm guessing they obviously had one in Finland since a certain Finnish driver is in top contention. And no, I don't mean Kimi Raikkonen, unfortunately.
I also wonder if Mercedes purposely did not release the ad in India, given the lack of Formula One talent.
I certainly hope it wasn't the lack of humor that they were referring to.
So Taki Inu, if I've got the pronunciation right, the worst ever Formula One driver, he applied.
Ouch.
The Crash Kid and actually really quick Kamui Kobayashi applied as well. And I totally appreciate their humor because they put up their applications on the internet. And to be honest, I'm sure a lot of drivers have applied for Rosberg's seat.
Kunal, I'm sure you secretly applied too, haven't you? Tell us. Don't pull a Nico Rosberg on us by retiring of this podcast. But yes, Valtteri Bottas absolutely fits the bill. So he's been consistent, he's been quick, and he's non-political, which is very important. But Kunal, who cares? We want Fernando Alonso.
So in Bottas, they will have yet another driver who, like Rosberg, will have to keep proving his talent against Hamilton. And I really hope Valtteri Bottas doesn't go the Heikki Kovalainen way. And, I am actually reading how Mercedes, need someone to help defend their World Constructors' Championship. But at the same time, let's remember, they need a Hamilton beater to keep Lewis Hamilton in check.
I like how you put that. Hamilton beater. Let's not forget that Williams needs Bottas too. Kunal, if they have a Stroll and Wehrlein pairing next season, I think they're going to be pretty uncomfortable. Anyway, my order of drivers that I think Mercedes should approach. Firstly, Fernando Alonso, of course. Secondly, Fernando Alonso. And Kunal, thirdly, Fernando Alonso.
I'm glad you, of all people, are not saying Kimi Raikkonen or Max Verstappen. The strange thing in this whole driver find or driver hunt that Mercedes is on, Toto Wolff said that Mercedes need to be brave to find Rosberg's replacement, and Bottas, in my view, isn't really a brave choice. And if I could list my top three choices, it would be either Fernando Alonso or Sebastian Vettel. The other driver, in my view, would be Nico Hulkenberg, and this is not to prompt the interview we have with him in a few minutes from now.
Don't lie, Kunal, you're totally plugging that interview.
And finally, I'd say Carlos Sainz Jr. He surely deserves something better than a Toro Rosso.
Though speaking of brave, I think Pastor Maldonado is the bravest choice they could make.
Actually, I'd be very happy if Fernando Alonso doesn't get into Mercedes, because Alonso just said that if he does win his third world title, he will then think of retiring from Formula One.
He will pull a Nico Rosberg.
In which case, I don't think Alonso should be welcome in Mercedes. And, we've just lost Massa, Button, and now Rosberg. And I think we should probably wait a few years before yet another stalwart decides to go away.
Yeah, I don't think I can handle any more retirements. Though honestly, McLaren should actually just accept Mercedes' offer for Alonso. It'll obviously mean more money for them, given that they're not earning that much from the FOM at the moment anyway. Doesn't sound like a bad deal. In fact, with Mercedes' money for Alonso, they might just fill up their title sponsor tag.
So imagine this, it'll be Mercedes, McLaren, Honda.
Wow.
Could there be a better name for them?
It's also interesting how Paddy Lowe is being sought after in some sort of an exchange for Bottas. So we've been hearing all these rumors flying, and it's disappointing that the dream team in Mercedes is already breaking up.
Yes, so there's Nico Rosberg who's already gone. There's talks of Paddy Lowe going, and this reminds me of how the trio in Ferrari, which was Jean Todt, Ross Brawn and Michael Schumacher, actually just disintegrated after all that success they had. I wonder why wouldn't they want to stick around and probably chase more success? But anyway, that's for another day. So Nico Rosberg has bet that Pascal Wehrlein will take his seat in Mercedes. And imagine the change of fortunes, because Worline at this moment has no contract for 2017. Of course, there are a few cockpits that are vacant. But he could go from a no contract to a contract to the world champion team.
I'm sure a certain Ocon is really, really disappointed hearing this. But yes, Gerhard Berger has bet on Nico Rosberg making a comeback later sometime. That'll be something to watch out for.
Although I don't think the comeback would be with Mercedes. Given how he's left them, I don't know if they'll be that much welcoming to him. But either way, we'll take it as it comes.
Luckily for us, the silly season has been so interesting that even the off-season has been interesting.
Yeah, usually it's just some really drab stories about which team is changing, which sponsor, etc.
And who is holidaying where.
Yeah.
I think, though, that we should just clone Max Verstappen and have him in all the cars next season. Guaranteed entertainment.
Yeah, this is much like what we've said before, that you should give every single car a Mercedes engine.
Speaking of Max Verstappen, so he's had the most overtakes in 2016. I'm not surprised, but hey.
So Pirelli has said that 2016 had most overtakes per season since 1983. And if I remember right, there were some 866 passes all season long. And imagine this, at this moment, the one memory I have of all those overtakes is Max Verstappen going bonkers in Brazil. But anyway, damn you DRS for all these fake numbers that have been thrown at us.
Anyway, Max Verstappen, he went and won not one but 2 FIA awards.
This reminds me of that Juan Pablo Montoya interview where what if you won something in Formula One? But okay, go on, come on.
And the others only won one.
I think you should repeat this point without all the laughter.
So yes, I will repeat it. Max Verstappen has won 2 FIA awards. And most other drivers have only won one. I can't help it, Kunal. And no, the award that Max Verstappen won, it wasn't the best fan-rated driver of the season award.
So he won the Action of the Year award, which I think is across all motorsport categories put together. I'm not sure if it includes MotoGP because MotoGP is always more fun, but either way, that's for another time. So Lewis Hamilton had the most overtakes in a race. It's not too hard to guess that he had 18 overtakes in China when he started at the back of the grid and finished on the podium. Strangely enough, and this is also why Sebastian Vettel should have been pursued harder by Mercedes, Vettel was the driver that was overtaken the least all season long. He was overtaken by Max Verstappen just once.
Had to be Max now. Fernando Alonso gained 41 places on the opening laps through the season. And that is the highest ever. Kunal, wow.
And for all of Max Verstappen's 78 overtakes, also the grid's highest, he had 60 in the Red Bull Racing as opposed to Ricciardo's 61. And you know what I really liked is Daniel Ricciardo said post Abu Dhabi that he's the peasants' world champion because he finished third in the Drivers' Championship.
Unfortunately for the Verstappens though, so we hear that Jos Verstappen is apparently in trouble for beating up his father, or basically Max Verstappen's grandfather. Ouch. And that is definitely not the kind of action we want to hear from the Verstappens. Or anyone for that matter, ever.
Yes, Jos, you should behave yourself and let Max misbehave on track.
Or we will call your father, who is anyway not pleased with you.
So the action that Nico Rosberg now wants is that of an action hero. And it's so very strange, and I don't understand what's with Formula One world champions and their acting bug.
So we know that Lewis Hamilton has been thinking of music and Hollywood, and now there's Nico Rosberg. Though knowing that Nico Rosberg knows Spanish and Italian and German and even Arabic,
or so we think.
Or so he says, I think he can absolutely pursue this acting dream in many different markets. Kunal, he's done Bollywood dialogues too.
Yeah.
So I think he has a future in India for sure.
Maybe being a linguist could be Nico Rosberg's superpower when he acts. Who knows?
Though I think he'd prefer to be called the Hamilton beater. So So amid all this shock retirement saga, Bernie Ecclestone has gone and said that Nico Rosberg retired early so that he could use up all his money. I think that is the dream, Kunal, the dream that all of us are aspiring for.
Oh, yes. I mean, who wouldn't want to retire right now and just be? We are constantly just chasing something. I think hats off to just pulling out of the rat race when you want to pull out. And, like one of our listeners, Akshob, quoted the famous cricket legend Sir Donald Bradman, who said that retire when they ask why and not why not.
That's a really well said quote. An interesting update. So, thanks to all this saga, Mercedes has actually let Lewis Hamilton go scot-free for his disobedience in Abu Dhabi. Though honestly, I don't think they had an option. But of course, we predicted this and we said that they would let him go scot-free. So Mercedes, we told you so.
And frankly, it just makes sense. And in fact, if I am not mistaken, they actually apologized for interfering in the race result. So hats off to Mercedes. We've thanked them for making the drivers race, and we should thank them again for making sure that they are fair as well.
I'm now just waiting for Niki Lauda to come out and apologize to Lewis Hamilton for picking ice cream with Rosberg over vodka shots with Lewis through the better part of last season. Okay, guys, so we're finally at that part of the podcast where we bring to you Nico Hulkenberg, the 2015 Le Mans champion, and hopefully, if Kunal has his way, a Mercedes driver for 2017.
Which reminds me, actually, before we move on to the Hulkenberg interview, Le Mans and Formula One will not clash in 2017. And I'm so glad that finally some common sense prevailed. And whether Nico Hulkenberg gets into the Mercedes next year or not, I have a feeling that he will be at Le Mans trying to win back his title, which he couldn't defend this season. So Nico Hulkenberg's interview actually helps us kick off a special series of episodes in the off-season.
So we all know how important radio messages have been to Formula One, and obviously for the drivers, but most importantly for the fans. And so often they've been our only source of entertainment during boring races. Kunal, you'd agree?
So in this special series, we turn around and ask our drivers their favorite radio message, one that they've exchanged and one that they've heard. And my best question, which has pretty much had all of them stumped, is their best Formula One joke.
And this is absolutely in line with our mission and purpose to add much needed humor to an otherwise serious sport, Formula One.
And on that note, a really big thank you to the Force India Formula One team for these bites. There's William Hings and William Ponesi in the communications team out there, and they are absolutely awesome.
Thank you so much, guys.
So here's over to the interview with Nico Hulkenberg, which actually happened just on the weekend of the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Nico, welcome to the Inside Line F1 podcast, and we're so happy to have you here. So tell us, what has been the funniest radio message that you've sent out in Formula One?
Funniest? Oh. Maybe that see you later one from Japan. Probably is one of the, not funny, but cool or funny, whatever, how you want to lay it out, I don't know. But there's many over the years, sometimes situations where you have a cheeky radio call or message, even like in practice sometimes, but can't remember them all now in so many years.
Speaking of see you later, I'm guessing that's what you're going to be saying to Force India soon as you move to Renault. But Nico, tell us, what is the funniest radio message you've ever heard from another team or another driver?
That's probably back in 2001 or 2002, Montoya at Williams in Austria, when it was about the deer on the track. And he goes, "Yeah, see, oh dear." That was pretty funny, I think. No, and they said to him, "There's a deer on the track. It's a horse with horns." They said to explain it.
Speaking of Juan Pablo Montoya, I think it would be awesome to have him back in the Mercedes, replacing Nico Rosberg.
I think he will be the perfect Lewis Hamilton beater as well.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
In his days, he was, of course, a Michael Schumacher beater, if I remember right.
And we could look forward to some more awesome radio messages. But finally, back to Nico Hulkenberg. Nico, tell us, what has been the funniest Formula One joke you've ever heard? And this is a question that has had most Formula One drivers stumped.
The funniest one joke. Don't know, can you help me out? Just take one that you know.
I don't know. There's nothing to joke about in sport.
No, it's a serious sport, eh?
Oh my God, Kunal, he actually referred to you. Kunal, please help him think of a Formula One joke.
I think listening to the Inside Line F1 podcast is probably the best joke that I could offer to Formula One fans. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time with Hulkenberg during his Force India days, and he's a great bloke and a very friendly guy. And thank you very much for being on the Inside Line Formula One podcast, Nico.
So guys, excitingly enough, we're going to have a bunch of other teams and drivers on the podcast soon. And if there's a particular driver you really wish for us to feature, let us know. Obviously, Kimi Räikkönen is already on that list.
In fact, we would love to hear from you guys. We have Lucien, Rajiv, Huzefa, Hiten, and many more who keep talking to us, via Twitter or even our Facebook page. And for next week, feel free to record a quick message, and it should be an audio message, of course. And you can tell us why you like us, who your favorite driver is, if you're looking forward to 2017. And of course, you could also tell us who you'd like to hear next on our podcast. And whatever else, we'll gladly play your message out.
And absolutely do not forget to subscribe to our channel on iTunes or Audio Boom. And signing off this episode on a really exciting note, guys, we have Sergio Perez up in next week's episode. So definitely do tune in.
Thank you very much, guys. See you around.